Hello, everybody. This is me, Amin.
And this Alex.
And welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the adoption of electric vehicles in Malaysia. So, electric vehicles is like all the rage now. I mean, not all the rage lah. So, electric vehicles have been always have been seen as something like super cool, right? It's something like the future, and it's always seen as something that normal people cannot ascertain electric vehicles because they're so expensive. But now, last year and this year especially, with some tax breaks and stuff like that, we are seeing a lot more electric vehicles coming into Malaysia. And then it's always a question about the chicken and egg, right? Because electric vehicles obviously requires charging. One of the biggest problems about electric vehicles is range anxiety, whether you can go to Penang from KL with one charge, and whether you need to stop and how long you need to stop and things like that. So the chicken and egg is, do we build the infrastructure first and then build the industry, the industry around it, and then build the market around it, and then move forward together, or just let things happen organically, or do we need government intervention in terms of policies and incentives to push this forward? The other question is, within the region, right, what is the impact? What is our power? What is Malaysia's, other countries, the nation's power in terms of influencing the industry and the adoption of electric vehicles within the region? Do we have significant power? Do we have significant influence? Or are we just a small country with a very small number of people and we do not have that ability? The impetus that started this discussion was one major news that happened in the automotive industry this week. So we are shooting on the 27th of January. So this is 27th of January. The show will usually come out a week after that. So take that into consideration. But there was an announcement by Proton or Protoneda or Proton and subsidiary of Protoneda, something like that.
Yep, last week actually, 19.
Last week, that Proton will be selling electric vehicles from this company called Smart.
Smart Automobile.
Yeah, so if you are aware, Smart was a company that was owned by Mercedes or Daimler back in the day. It was a collaboration with a watchmaker called Swatch, and they wanted to develop the concept was develop a sustainable vehicle, a city car that you can use around the city, that's sustainable to build, and also that's customizable, that you can change the body panels and stuff. That was like the original concept. I think a few years after that, Daimler bought over all the stocks from Swatch, and then it became a Daimler company. And then after that, Daimler worked together with Geely, and then they formed another company called Smart Automobile.
Yep.
And then it's a 50-50 company. And then I think within that period, Geely also bought Proton. And then today, Proton made the announcement that they're gonna be able to sell smart vehicles in Malaysia. And then one of our writers, Duke, he wrote about like how it's a missed opportunity because Proton can. Geely is like the holding company of Proton. With all the knowledge and insight, Geely can transfer that to Proton, and Proton can suddenly develop their own electric vehicles. But we're going to talk about that a little later. Right now, electric vehicles in Malaysia, where we at?
Right now, okay, like you mentioned earlier just now that government recently has introduced new incentives. So I think if you follow the recent announcement for budget 2022, they've announced full tax exemption for electric vehicles, and on top of that, they also provide additional incentives like a 2,500 ringgit tax break for costs for EV charging facilities. So let's say if you're an owner, you don't need to pay for road tax. If you need to install like a fast charger at home, those things can be tax exempted. So those are the initiatives that are announced by government, and that actually brought down prices for a couple of EVs in Malaysia. Like for example, the most notable one I would say is the BMW iX. So now I think it costs like about the same price as a BMW X5. So it's like a much more modern car, more better looking car at the price of a plug-in hybrid. So in a way that, looking at it like, wow, I can get a much more advanced car at a lower price. Even the Taycan, I think when it was launched, the entry level was 580,000. Now it's like about 500,000. Still expensive, but it's still like cost savings for people who can afford it. And I think right at the moment, the cheapest electric vehicle you can get right now, I think is the Hyundai Kona. It costs about 150k. Yeah, and the Nissan Leaf initially was launched about 200,000. Now I think it's slightly cheaper. Yeah.
And then we also have the Mini E.
Mini E, that's about 200,000. I haven't seen the new revised price yet, but yes, if you can afford electric cars, you can get some cost savings here, but still not attainable for the average Malaysian because those are all quite expensive
Yeah,
cars.
okay. So we start with that, right? We start with this government incentive that was announced, I think, last year during the budget.
Yep,
Last
October.
year, right? And then this incentive is open ended, right? There's no end date to.
There was, I think it's until 2025, if I'm not mistaken. There's a duration to it. So that's about it. Okay, you got direct tax
tax
breaks.
incentives, right?
Yeah.
For the purchase of vehicles.
Yes.
So I think we had a discussion in office, like what is the objective of this incentive? What is the government trying to do? Obviously, I think during the announcement they said, to promote the use of electric vehicles and promote the industry of automotive industry, blah blah blah. We're gonna have these tax breaks, and like Alex mentioned, looking at the prices and the brands that are offering these electric vehicles, they are not for everybody.
Yep.
They're probably for the top 20, top 10%.
I would say T10 lah.
Yeah, I mean, the people who are buying this, I don't think they are buying this to
Save the world.
and reduce carbon footprint. So the promise of electric vehicle is that, right? Because of the growing number of people who need to go on the road, the increasing number of cars, the increasing number of carbon footprint globally, electric vehicles is seen to be like one of the solution. It's not the solution, but it's one of the solutions, or a stepping stone before we go to a fully carbon neutral world.
Yep.
And a number of countries have already committed to say that, okay, we agree that this is the way moving forward. Electric vehicles is one of the ways. And because of that, we're going to commit to something. So globally, I think a number of countries have already committed that they're not going to sell internal combustion engine vehicles by 2030 or something like that.
Yeah, some as early as 2030. So basically, they're going to stop selling the sale of petrol or diesel vehicles. Means purely electric cars. I think it depends on. I think hydrogen should count as well.
Yep.
Since they're not internal combustion. So some of them set these targets. Just to recap some of them, like Singapore, the target is to stop selling
ICE cars,
for taxis in 2025 and for other vehicles 2030. In Thailand is 2035. In Indonesia is 2050. Where else can I say? New Zealand's 2040. United Kingdom is 2030 as well. Yeah, so quite a lot of ambitious targets, and some of them I think is realistic because some of them have smaller population like Singapore, and also it's hard to get a private cars because they don't actually encourage private ownership of vehicles. In other countries, I think their EV adoption has been picking up because they've been giving incentives and promoting EV usage for quite a while now.
Yeah, so obviously with these targets in mind, these countries are looking at electric vehicles as something of a mass adoption vehicle. Now back in Malaysia, number one, this list of countries that you mentioned, there are two lists, right? So one is that the list on Wikipedia, countries that have pledged by themselves, or whether they've agreed in an accord or convention or whatever, right, that they will stop selling internal combustion vehicles by set date. And then there's another list, I think by the UN. So there's a UN summit. We'll put the link in the description later. A number of countries have also committed that they're going to stop selling new cars that are going to be sold in these countries by 2040 at the least will all be not internal combustion engines. So it could be electric or hydrogen, right?
And also certain brands, they also declared, okay, we're going to stop making internal combustion engine vehicles by certain dates as well.
Yeah, so I believe Lotus has agreed. I think Volvo, a number of brands of the hand, right? Okay, where am I getting at? Here's where I'm getting at. Malaysia is missing. Malaysia is missing on all the lists that we've done our research. So the one list that Alex was quoting was on Wikipedia. The other one was the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference. There was like an agreement there by a number of countries, over 20 countries, that said that they're going to move to all new sales of zero-emission cars and vans globally by 2040. That is the target. Malaysia has not come out to say that we are going to shift towards electric vehicles.
There's no clear deadline for that yet. Yeah.
I've not recalled anybody from the government, or whether the Ministry of Transportation, or whether it's Innovation or Environment, saying that, okay, this is our commitment, all three of them. And I think it's sad lah, you know.
Yeah.
Why is it sad? Okay, here's the thing, right? So you know Grab, right? So Grab is a company that was born in Malaysia. The founders are all Malaysian, and then they moved to Singapore because Singapore has better, more interesting tax incentives for big companies. And obviously one of the ways for companies to save money is not to pay tax, the amount of tax that they should. So they moved to Singapore. Okay, why am I talking about this? Here's the thing. Grab is also available in Indonesia and in big population countries. Did you know that Grab has like started an initiative in Indonesia for their cars to all be, for their fleet to be fully electric? I think they're using Ionics there.
Yep.
In Indonesia.
Yes, yeah.
Here's the thing: why is it not happening in Malaysia? Why private companies not promoting the use of electric vehicles, or at least the awareness of electric vehicles? Yeah, we can say that we see companies like Toyota and all that moving to hybrid. We see Hyundai now bringing a full electric vehicle option. I think not a lot of car brands in Malaysia is doing that. I think Kona and Nissan are the only two for mass lah. I'm not talking about the premium market segment like Mini, BMW, and all that. I commend all that, but these are very small drops in this big ocean. I don't see Malaysia like really wanting to lead this electric vehicle adoption.
Yeah, and then like you said, right, it's like it's a twofold thing. It's like chicken egg, right? You can provide the vehicles, but another portion will be the infrastructure. Because brands like you talk about Toyota, Hyundai, and all that, right, who can actually make affordable cars. I don't see any significant investments or pledge that how are we going to contribute to the ecosystem, to the infrastructure?
Yep.
Because BMW, I think they recently signed MOU with several groups, but it's still very high level. There's no clear deadlines of how they're going to push this.
Yep.
I think the more tangible one I've seen is Shell, where they pledge to have 6 high-speed chargers, just 6 for the whole peninsula of Malaysia.
Yeah.
And looking at the rates, right, it's costing a bomb. And it's not enough. And like what Duke has mentioned, right, in Malaysia, as of last year, there were only like 500 chargers in
the whole of
Malaysia. And I think mostly are AC chargers, which is slower than DC. And Thailand, they are like triple. Like there's 1,500 chargers, and I think nearly half of them are fast chargers, DC chargers.
Yeah. I think TNB also announced a partnership, right? Was that with the one with Shell or Petronas?
Petronas. Yeah, there's a couple. There's a lot of announcements, but no clear timelines. Okay, when is this going to achieve? Because let's say if you're a car manufacturer, right? Why am I going to bring an EV car when there's no infrastructure? I think we went for the launch by Geely. Geometry is like a pure EV brand.
Yep. In Singapore.
It's a regional launch.
Yep.
They invited Malaysian media, and then we went in. Then we found out, we're not going to bring to Malaysia.
Yeah.
Like what? And
despite Geely owning Proton, right? Despite Geely having a significant interest in the country, we seem to be not visible for all this major investment and major movements in terms of electric vehicle adoption in the country. Okay, the question is why? I think the answer comes to the government, I think, because there is no set target, like you mentioned. There is no set policies or incentives that is looking at it long term, and I think that's a major problem. Obviously, for this to happen, a significant change in terms of the way that we handle the car market in the country has to change. Our market needs to be more open so that cars can be more affordable. But for that to happen, a lot of the AP holders have to start giving up the APs. A lot of these people who have high influence with the government and high connections are making tons of money from approved permits, from APs. And that has to change. So, but then, okay, the other flip side of this, I say, Malaysia is just a small country compared to all the other countries in the region, right? I agree. Malaysia, in terms of population, is only number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We are only the 6th most populous country in the region. Number 1 is Indonesia. But here's the thing. Population does not equate to buying power. We have a lot of influence in Malaysia because we have significant buying power, especially for vehicles, despite the tax structure that we have right now. And that's why companies like Honda, Toyota, and all that are eager to send over special edition vehicles just for us. Like, for example, like Honda, right? I think we get like special colors or special finishing or whatever
And okay,
I can't remember
yeah.
exactly, but I remember you were covering it in your Honda Civic launch the other time.
Oh, I think one of it is not, it's not just color. I think Honda City, the RS Hybrid.
Uh-huh.
I think they made the debut in Malaysia.
Yep.
So that shows like they were a significant market
Yeah,
because I
we're
think
important market.
yeah, because I think the for the RS Hybrid, not all markets get it. I think the Philippines doesn't get it, but we have it here. And then another thing that to note is that a lot of these brands they have local production facilities. Toyota assemble cars here, Honda assemble cars here as well. So there's a lot of car manufacturing. Car brands manufacture cars here, but now them are EVs.
Yep.
So that's disturbing. And seeing that petrol cars are going to be sunset in a way, and we're not doing the transition, what happens to the car industry after this?
Yeah, so it comes to a point where we are now second-class citizens when it comes to the technology deployment of cars, right?
Yep.
So we, like you mentioned, I think in our discussion, Malaysia is becoming the go-to country to produce ICE cars.
Go to?
The go-to country, right? We are the country that will only distribute internal combustion engine vehicles.
Yeah, so let's say, for example, if more countries are only pushing EV cars, right? Then at the end, we're going to sell what? Sell cars to only other third world countries that still allows the sale of ICE cars.
Yeah, we'll probably sell to like Zimbabwe
I
or
don't know.
some African nation or something like that. I mean, okay, so I'm coming back to purchasing power, right? So while Malaysia is only the sixth most populous country in the region, we are, in terms of car sales for last year, number 2. Only second to Indonesia.
It's not a big margin, right?
Yeah, it's not a big margin. Okay, so for passenger vehicles, Indonesia sold 585,000, almost 586,000 vehicles for 2021. Malaysia sold 392, almost 400,000 vehicles in the same period. So that's only a difference of 100,000 vehicles.
But just until November, right?
Sales to November, yes,
Yeah,
correct,
November, yeah.
correct.
Okay.
Sales to November, yeah. But I mean, consider this. Malaysia has 33 million people, and Indonesia has 273 million people.
That's nearly
like,
10 times more.
Yeah, and our sales discrepancy is only 100,000.
That
I
shows
mean,
that
100,000 is a lot, lah. But
yeah.
it shows that Malaysians love cars. We want to buy lots of cars. I mean, not want to buy lots of cars. We love our cars. We love driving around.
But sometimes not by choice, it's by necessity though.
I mean, it's a couple of things, lah, right?
Yep.
So the way that our population density is not that high, considering even in Kuala Lumpur, people are now being able to work in city areas and still live in rural areas. So people are now staying in Nilai, in Seremban because of the infrastructure, right? Our highways are better, our traffic is better. There is more options in terms of public transportation in the city, allowing people to move around without driving so much. But we as a society and as a culture, I say that Malaysians love to drive, generally speaking. I'm not sure. Maybe we have people who are in the younger generation of the audience. Some people feel that okay, riding Grab is much better than driving. The inconvenience of buying cars, sending them for service, paying for road tax, paying for fuel, and all that is an inconvenient. But from my end of the spectrum, it feels like a lot of people still like buying cars. That's why the number shows that we're buying more cars. Then your question is it because of infrastructure or is it because we just love buying cars?
Okay, number one, I would say is out of necessity rather than enjoying buying cars because you need a car to move around, especially in East Malaysia, right, where public transport is non-existent. You need a car to get around.
Yep.
There's no LRTs or proper buses. Even KL buses are not so reliable, although they're improving.
Okay.
So they just buy out of necessity. And also to add to that, right, I think access to cheaper cars in Malaysia is not so bad. Despite people say that taxes are quite high.
Cheaper and capable cars lah.
Yeah,
right?
like
so like Myvis,
Asia's, Asia, and I think kudos to Proton to make cars more affordable. And I
Proton
think
too.
Yeah, Proton too. But I would say that Proton sets a better benchmark.
Okay.
Because like we mentioned last time, like the new Myvi, you can get lots of tech, even put some 200,000 ringgit cars to shame by having like the top spec advanced safety features like autonomous emergency braking, lane keep assist for less than 60,000 ringgit. Yeah.
Let me counter that, right? Number one, East Malaysia, the population density there is much lower and people there are less. So I don't think that adds on to the number of that influence much in terms of whether people want to buy cars or not. Number two is like there's a lot of alternatives here in at least in Peninsula, right? If you don't want to drive a car, you go by Grab. After you go by Grab, and then you want to drive a car because you want to carry furniture or you want to do groceries, you have GoCar, Socar, all the cars that you can
The car sharing platforms are
yeah,
there.
you can share, right?
Yeah.
So not really an issue there.
But the point is that the market here is huge in
Yes.
ASEAN.
It's huge. The buying power is huge. In fact, that's what you said, right? A lot of manufacturers, they want to be in the country. They want to be able to manufacture, design, develop cars from Malaysia for the region. That was the original plan.
Yep.
It went to hell and became and hit the ceiling, whatever my thing, right? Because of what? Because of the government. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's like, look at, knowing, based on that facts, right? You know, Malaysia has a huge car market, right? But we see more EV developments in our neighbors.
In Thailand.
Yeah, like for example, besides Tesla opening shop in Singapore, there's a whole different issue.
That's an
altogether.
outlier.
Okay.
Okay.
Thailand aimed to be an EV production hub, and they actually attracted investments because a lot of the EV players are actually new startups, and they're setting up shop in Thailand.
Yep.
Indonesia also wants to be like a hub to make EV batteries. So all that contribute to the ecosystem.
Yep.
But another thing about Indonesia is because they have resources for nickel, which is actually crucial for EV.
Yep.
Battery production.
Rare earth, is it?
Rare earth, yeah. So that's one thing. But at the end of the day, it looks like how come we're not seeing the same developments in Malaysia?
Yeah, we have an advantage because number one, I think in terms of country, Malaysia is really nice. We have the beaches, we have the mountains, we have all these nice driving places. We have really good food.
And also talents as well.
We have talent and we have people who can speak English. We have the production capabilities. We have the infrastructures in terms of the highway, and we're not so spread out.
Yep.
Right? If you compare us to like Indonesia, for example, it's like, oh my God, you cannot. Indonesia is so spread out. They're spread out across like 3-4 time zones.
It's like United States, like several countries
it's
in
like
one.
Fractured United States. You
yeah.
know? And then you have Thailand. Thailand, there's a language barrier. Again, the population is so spread out and it's so mountainous and things like that, right? Philippines not so stable, right? And then you have Thailand and Vietnam. Okay, Thailand, Vietnam, maybe Sorry, I spoke about Thailand just now. I'm talking about Vietnam, right? So Vietnam is more of like the labor cost is cheaper there.
Yeah, they're seen as the China of
the
China.
Next China, right?
Yeah.
Because China now becoming
more
very,
expensive, more
very
premium
already. It's like, we've made it. I mean, kudos to them, right? So what we're getting at is this. It's like, I think we have the number one. We have the demand. The market wants to buy electric vehicles. I think the reception for electric vehicles in Malaysia is very high. People really love technology. We love our phones, we love our TVs, and we love our cars. I think that is what Malaysians are. And like anybody in the world, we love value as well. If our value structure is much better, people will buy better cars. So that's one problem. Number two is we have the people, and we have the capabilities, and we have the infrastructure to become a powerhouse in terms of vehicle development. We tried that before 30 years ago. Tun Mahathir saw that opportunity for us to become an industrialized country, and the ticket to it is to develop our own car because cars are iconic. Look, Elon Musk is doing it now. He only this year, I think, he made a profit or whatever. But again, Teslas are not a mass market vehicle, and they're not a vehicle that's going to change the world and save the environment. It's basically an advertising billboard for Elon and his other companies. The more I talk about this, the more I consider this, it's sad because we have all the capabilities and the opportunity to do it, but the government's not doing anything about it.
Yeah, so to sum it up, basically, the environment here is not favorable for them to push EV.
No, correction. The environment is favorable.
I seen the policies, the policies,
Yeah.
Because the manufacturers are here, but they're not making EVs.
Yeah.
It's clear that something's wrong here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like even the Westerners, right? They come to Malaysia. They love Malaysia, but they prefer Singapore because Singapore is just more safer in terms of like more structured, more cleaner. It's just nicer
and stable, and stable,
a nicer Asian country lah.
Yeah.
Right. But then when they want to go to the islands, to the beaches, they want to have the real good food. They come to Malaysia. I think Indonesians like it here too. I don't know about Thailand and Vietnam, but yeah, we have that opportunity. Okay, I think that's pretty much it in terms of what I want to cover. We covered about cost a bit, right? So refueling and all. Do you want to talk about that? Cause
Yes.
okay.
Okay, the thing about EVs, right? People think that, okay, going EVs because it's going to save a lot of money. Actually, guess what? It's not cheap to own an EV. Okay, besides paying a slight premium over petrol. Okay, even if the electric car is same price as a petrol car, right? You got to think about this. Battery lifespan is not forever.
Yep.
Probably after 8-9 years, your battery's going to degrade and going to cost money to replace that. And remember back then there was this guy who bought a hybrid for his Mercedes E Class. To replace it, going to cost him 120,000 ringgit. And then eventually, after it went viral,
Yeah.
I think they announced, okay, we're going to give you a discount.
Yeah.
It's going to be 80,000. That costs like a car.
Yeah.
So
You gotta plonk in like $80,000 to replace just the battery.
yeah, and imagine if even whatever cost savings that you have for not using petrol, you're going to pay more to replace the battery. And I think a lot of first gen hybrid users have complained about that. And the secondly is about charging. Okay, because here's the thing, a hybrid car is actually much different from the EV because EV, right, you need more. You have a bigger battery capacity, which means you need to charge even longer. So if you're going to charge it at home on a daily basis, you're probably going to pay almost the same amount you spend on a petrol car. And if you say, okay, you know what? You know there are charging facilities out there. Yes, there are. And you're going to buy the latest and greatest tech and you want to spend less time charging it, you had to go for the fast chargers. And Shell initially announced their high performance chargers where it can charge up to 80% in just 30 minutes.
The
And
180 kilowatt
180 kilowatt.
chargers, right?
Yeah, and also subject to how fast your car can support, like phones, right? Like you can have a fast charger, but if your phone supports 15 watt, you won't get the maximum juice.
Yeah.
And Shell, okay, let me just bring out the cost. So how they charge is based on time by 5 minute blocks. So there's like a standard rate. If you don't have membership, it will cost you 20 ringgit for every 5 minutes of charging for the first 25 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, and then if you Reza did this article, if you do the math right, which means you need to pay 124 ringgit for 30 minutes of charging, and you can get 80% if your car supports it. Imagine if your car doesn't support the full 180 watt.
Yeah.
You want to charge it to the max.
Yeah.
You got to prepare to pay a lot more.
Yeah. Okay, so cost is one thing, right? So, and I mentioned this before, electric vehicles are not the be all and end all for climate change and global warming and stuff like that. It's not. For this to change, a lot more other things need to change. You need public transportation. You need to redesign your cities to allow people to move around better without the need of car. You can see America. America is the best example of the worst way to live with cars, because they're so driven by selling cars that they start designing cities and living spaces that facilitate driving more than walking. European countries are the best. Barcelona is like the best example of how you coexist with cars and people, and that's how you reduce carbon footprint. Not by changing to a car that does not use fossil fuel to using electric, because at the end of the day you still need to use the energy. At the end of the day, it's just stop using cars.
Yep.
I cannot say I advocate that, because I really love driving. I really do love driving, and I cannot live in a day where I cannot drive, or
I mean, they can coexist, right? I mean, there are places where you can drive. Like I still enjoy my drives driving long distance to different towns, and then take my own time to enjoy the sights and all that. But in the city, though, we talk about sustainability, how to make it more livable. It's no point about enjoying about drive, but going to stuck in the traffic jam for like half an hour, 1 hour.
That's true.
So these kind of things, like going to city, right? I believe there should be. I think the people should take back the city streets to human living.
Yeah.
So like for example, I don't mind driving, but if I can drive to a point where I can drop my car, take public transport to the city, I'm fine with that. If overall it saves me time, it's convenient, I won't miss my appointment. Yeah. I'm all for that.
Yeah, and the city will become a lot quieter.
Yes.
The air in the cities will be a lot more fresher. It's all for the good of it, right? So maybe that's a topic for another episode. But what I'm trying to say is that cost is a factor. But coming back to this chicken and egg, right? if there are more people using these electric vehicles on the road, maybe the cost will be lower. Shell is significant because they set a benchmark in terms of charging. Because previously, while you can see charging stations in Petronas and in shopping malls and stuff like that, they do not have the capability to charge as fast as what Shell is doing.
Yeah, especially when back then, I think it's okay because it was plug-in hybrid, so
Yep.
the battery wasn't that huge.
Yep.
You still can use petrol.
Mm-mm.
But I talk about full EVs, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, it's a whole different story altogether.
Yeah.
The awareness needs to be there. The infrastructure needs to be there. The demand needs to be there. So if you look at all the check boxes, I think the buying power is there. The demand and awareness is there. I think people in Malaysia are more environmentally cautious. They want to contribute towards saving the environment. They want to be able to use less and save cost because petrol cost is also high. So they want to change. I think in terms of whether, if tomorrow the government say that, okay, we're going to do this, people will adopt, people will jump. The question is, if tomorrow they say they're going to do this and people will start buying electric vehicles, the infrastructure is not there. And it's not because the private sector or whatever, but it's because the government lack foresight.
And also another thing I want to add on is that since talking about this kind of environment issues, I think one thing they talk about is the power source. Because in Malaysia, I'm not mistaken, more than half of our power source comes from coal. You're not mistaken. And there's no point of getting people to buy EV cars and show off. See, I'm more
Conscious.
environmentally cautious than you. You look at you and disgusting petrol or diesel cars.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no point be proud of that if your power source coming from coal. Yeah. So even like Toyota, right? Even in Japan, how they approach EV is different because in Europe they say, okay, let's kill all the cars, the petrol ICE cars, and move to EV. But for Japan, right, they say that let's get our priorities straight. The enemy is carbon, not internal combustion engines.
Yep.
So that's why they're looking at how do we actually make it more environmental friendly. And also the first step, instead of jumping all straight EV, the approach is to move to hybrid vehicles.
Yep.
Besides EVs, they're also looking at other environmental friendly options like hydrogen.
Yep.
Because I don't think any other car manufacturers are pushing hydrogen as much as the Japanese. So they're looking at other alternatives as well.
Yeah, I think step by step is the way. I think taking steps into the right direction is the way to go. The problem is I don't see. I guess maybe you guys can put in the comment section below and maybe help us figure this out, right? Because for me, I cannot see, all the research has done, I cannot see that Malaysia is doing anything in terms of stepping into the right direction for like lowering our carbon footprint, saving, lowering the use of fossil fuels and coal in our electric production. Yeah, the companies are going to say, oh, we have solar this, solar that, but it's not mass.
Yep.
It's not moving anything. It's not moving needles. So maybe I'm missing something here. You guys let me know.
Yeah, and instead, our government is focusing too much on, people killing orangutans and
Tigers.
And then
Logging is good for tigers.
logging is good for tigers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's embarrassing lah.
Yeah. Okay. And I think that's pretty much it. That wraps up the show for today. I hope you guys enjoy it. I really enjoyed having that discussion with you, Alex. So I just want to remind you guys that we are available on podcasts. So if you want to listen to the show, we're available on any of the popular podcast platforms around. So all you have to do is just search for Sorry Chin Chow Let's Talk About, and we're there. Please do give us a 5-star rating if you like the show, because that helps our show a lot. If you're watching us on YouTube, please do give us a thumbs up if you like the show. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And comments and suggestions. We love reading all that you have to say, especially about this topic, whether Malaysia is ready for electric vehicles or not. And let us know, because that gives us motivation and ideas to talk about other shows. For those of you who are listening to us on podcasts, drop us a voice note at letstalkabout@sorrychinchow.com. And if that voice note is interesting, we're going to play on the show, on the next show. Okay, so that's pretty much it. This is me, Amin.
And this Alex.
Catch you guys later.
Bye.